Welcome to another episode of the STR Sisterhood. I'm your host, Stacey St. John, and I am so stinking excited to spend some time with you today. Thanks for inviting me into your day. Now, before we jump into this episode, I want to share a quote that I recently read that resonated with me. And it says, "You need to learn how to select your thoughts just the same way you select your clothes every day. This is a power you can cultivate." Those incredible words of advice come to us from best-selling author Elizabeth Gilbert. Now, in today's episode, we are diving deep into Sheila Dickinson's story, and it's one I know that you will resonate with if you are managing a short-term rental business with a family member. So without further ado, let's dive into my conversation with Sheila. So today we are here with Sheila Dickinson, and I've got to say, she is doing this podcast interview from Panama City Beach. I am doing it with a foot of snow on my front yard. So let's all live vicariously through Sheila today. Sheila, thanks for being with us.
You're welcome. I'm super excited and honored to be here.
Well, I would love for you to just start off and share a little bit about who you are and how you got started in the world of short-term rentals.
Okay. I love your intro that talks about real life women, because I'm just a real life woman. I worked for the federal government for 30 years. I'm a CPA and accountant, and I retired in 2021, I think. And at that point, I'd already owned a couple of short-term rentals. And how I started is kind of interesting because I've been doing it for 9 years. So that it's longer, since 2016, longer than most short-term rental owners before it was the thing to do. And I lived in Bremerton, Washington, which is near the Puget Sound, near Seattle, if people don't know where that is. And my boyfriend at the time lived in Vancouver, Washington, which is down near Portland, Oregon. And I had a beautiful waterfront townhome. I worked for the Navy, and it was time for me to move down with him. So I didn't want to sell my beautiful, beautiful house. He says it's because I was too smart and I needed a place to go back to, but that's not true. I really just I didn't want to sell it. It was gorgeous. I intended to never, ever sell that house. And so I was going to rent it out, but someone said, why don't you short-term rental it? And I'm like, well, who would go to Bremerton, Washington and rent a house, rent a townhome? And I said, but sure, I'll try it, because that way, number one, I don't have to move my stuff, because he had a full house, and I don't have to move my stuff, and then we can use it. We can go up there because it's a fabulous place to go. And so I short-term rented it, and it did amazing. And then one day someone called me and said, hey, someone wants to buy this house. And I said, no, it's not for sale. I'm not selling this house. And I said, it's a rental. That's why you found it on, places. And they said, well, I said, they'd have to, and this was way before the big boom where people went over asking price. I said, they'd have to give me $50,000 over asking price. And they said, okay. And I told he's my husband now, he's my boyfriend now. And I said, oh my gosh, I said, I don't want to sell it. I said, he said, well, you need to look at this as a business and think about what you really want to do. And so I sold it. I bought my next one 2 blocks away. But I also, so I worked for most of my time in Panama City Beach for the Navy, and my son was born and raised there. And I knew eventually I would have a grandchild, which I do, in Panama City Beach. And so I said, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and with the profit, I'm going to buy this one in Bremerton, and then I'm going to buy one in Panama City Beach at my first condo there. So just grew from there.
I love it. Very organic and very relatable, right? I'm curious, when you bought the property in Panama City, were you still living in Washington?
Yes. And in fact, I still do live in Washington. And I do have a 4-year-old. My son lives in Panama City Beach, as I knew he would stay there probably. And I have a 4-year-old granddaughter here.
Oh.
So, and I own, I always have to count. People laugh at me. I own 6 houses here, 6 houses / condos, my husband and I. And so the last one we bought was on the bayou, not in Panama City Beach, but in Panama City. And it's beautiful. And that we bought that one for our winter home. So I winter kind of in Panama City Beach and in Vancouver in Washington State when it's beautiful there in the summer. So
that's awesome. So talk to me a little bit about the journey from 2 places to 6 places down in Panama City. What did that growth path look like for you?
So while I was still working for the Navy with my W-2 job, I did all kinds of different financing. I've done lots of different financing, and we own 9 now because we actually rent out our personal residence when we winter in Florida or go on other long-term trips. So we've grown and quite a bit, and I bought the next one with my son. And then it did so well in Panama City Beach. I told my husband, I said, well, let's buy one together. And it just kept growing. But I've used a huge variety. I've used investment loans. I've used DSCR loans. In fact, we're under contract right now where we're going through that. And I also own with my IRA. So that's kind of something different. And I also did some loans before I retired because I could not, with the rules for self-directed IRAs, I couldn't pull all of my money out of my IRA till I actually retired, or most of my money. But so before then, I would just take out loans from my IRA, and the self-directed IRA is fabulous, but it's also, I've learned a lot. It's been an interesting journey, and
I want to dive into that in just a moment because I think so many folks may not understand the incredibly powerful tool they have with a self-directed IRA and how you can utilize that for real estate. But before I ask you those questions, I want to go back to the fact that you bought a property with your son. A lot of us moms out there are thinking about, well, that could go really well or really bad. So talk to us a little bit about how you decided to purchase a property with your son, what your conversations were like with him, and how you've set kind of boundaries or parameters about, all right, we're going to talk real estate now. We're going to talk family now. What does that look like?
So he was just about 21, I think, maybe 22. And he actually borrowed the down payment from me because the plan was for it to be his eventually. And I was just going to help him along with the process, help him manage it. And he would pay off the loan to me through the proceeds over time. And the end result, the plan was that when I felt he was responsible and took an active role in it, that I would actually sign it over to him. And so I knew that would probably, I told him, I said, that's probably going to be several years at least, you're going to have to prove before I sign this over to you that you're going to be responsible with it. And the interesting thing is I never did sign it over to him. It just worked out organically to work out well. I did most of the managing. I trained him to manage some. He's not the detailed manager, and so he ended up just paying me out of the proceeds. And we actually sold it. He's starting to do some flipping. He's part of Pace Mowbray's group. Mowbray, yes. And he's paid the money and he's part of the group. It's not called a mastermind, it's called something else. And I'm sitting actually in a condo right now that he took down to the studs and redid it, and it's beautiful. Oh, it's beautiful. If someone wants a great place, beachfront to stay in Panama City Beach, it's gorgeous. But it's for sale too, and he's flipping it. So anyway, he learned a lot from that very first foray into real estate.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you ever have any challenging times where, you may have felt like, okay, we need to have a heart to heart and this could get sticky?
Yes. And my husband will say, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, there were times when I felt a little taken for granted. Not a lot, but, I did a lot of work for it. And that was when he was much, much younger. He has matured into an excellent young man. But when he was younger and just the frustration sometimes of trying to train him and teach him things, I've never, even, from grade school, I've never been good at teaching him things. And I'm not, just like my dad could never teach me, but so there were definitely some struggles, but I think I know it made us a lot stronger as a mother-son. And funny enough, the person that bought it was a mother-son combo. Yeah, really fun. And I manage it for them because they don't want to manage it. But I said, how apropos is this that a mother-son bought it?
That's so fun. That's so fun.
Yeah.
Now, I also want to ask you, because I wrote down, you also have purchased investment properties with your once boyfriend, now husband.
Yes.
What has that dynamic been like? And, buying an investment property with a spouse where you may not have had experience or even thought about being in business together?
Yeah, so we're both we're both very different, my husband and I, but he owned Kentucky Fried Chickens for years, and he's very process oriented, very good at communication, and very type A in charge, very assertive. I'm very type A in charge. I'm not so assertive, so it's nice I can hand over that kind of stuff to him. But it's been a struggle sometime, and ironically, decor has been a huge struggle sometimes. Like I thought, okay, we're going to get divorced over paint colors because we do most of our own decor, and we do most of our own together, and as well as our installation and all of that kind of stuff. And so, but the second thing is, I've been training him as well on on talking to guests, and we'll be going down the road and we'll see a message come through, and he'll give me like this is what I would say, and he'll tell me, quote, exactly what I'm like, really? You're going to tell me word for word? So that gets a little sticky sometimes. We've kind of worked through that, but in general, we work really well together with that. But that again has taken some time and some tough times with that.
Sure. Well, I think for so many couples, you're in love with your spouse, you enjoy spending time with them. They have their job and you have a separate job. And when you start to intermingle work with family life, it gets hairy sometimes, right? And there are things that we have to learn about one another. I know my husband and I are in the exact same boat. We just celebrated our 30th anniversary. We love spending time together. And if he goes with me to Home Goods, I want to pull my hair out because he wants to, hey, what about this? What about that? And I'm, honey, just leave the decorating to me. Okay. But it's fun too, because they want to be involved. Right. And how lucky are we to have spouses who are passionate about the same things that we are and want to have a level of involvement. I know that there are so many women who might be listening who are like, oh man, I would give anything for my husband to want to go to Home Goods with me. And I don't want to come across that I'm complaining at all. But I think if you're listening and you don't have a supportive spouse at home, I think it is so incredibly important to surround yourself with people who are a support system, whether it's other women in the short-term rental space, folks in your local communities. I think it's so important to have a support network. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. I actually have created a meetup in Vancouver where I live the majority of the year. And I call it the Vancouver Short-Term Rental Happy Hour. And we have a Facebook page. We meet in person, usually quarterly. I'm not in town a lot. And I've tried to kind of pass off the meeting things to other people, but that doesn't seem to work. So I just, but we have anywhere from 20 to 30 people that in the Vancouver, Portland area that will show up, and our group is probably 50. And it's pretty fun. We normally meet at somebody's house so we can stay as long as we want. We've become pretty good friends with a lot of them. Whoever volunteers to host will make soup or something, and we'll just chat for 3-4 hours about. And we were very involved. Vancouver, Washington. Developed licensing requirements just in the last 2 years. And the group was very involved in that, going down to City Hall and talking at commissioner meetings and things like that. But that was great. I've also been a member of Bill Faith's Mastermind, which was incredible for learning all kinds of things, but mostly, and I think this is probably the case with most masterminds, for just relationships and networking, and I've really, really found my tribe. In fact, I'm in some groups. Well, number one, I was just before I came here, I was in Gatlinburg helping a good mastermind friend put up wallpaper at her place. I said, "You fly me out there." I said, "I'll put up wallpaper." And I think I'm actually going to start a business on wallpaper, by the way.
There you go. Well, that's fun.
Love it. Yeah.
You would not want me to put up wallpaper. I will tell you that.
Yeah. That's what my friend Lori, she's like, no, she said, I could not. She watched me. She said, I could not do this. I said, I love it. I'm in my zone. I put my headset in, I listen to books and podcasts, and I'm good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we also have another group that's doing, we're actually hiring a business consultant, and we're going to have a 4-day retreat, just our own. It's just a group of friends who are committed to doing that. So I think, and it didn't come instantly, finding my tribe, so to speak. And then I've met lots of your tribe. Through my tribe, we had a weekend in Myrtle Beach last year. Yeah, it was great. And so, yeah, and I think we're going to do the same thing and listen to your virtual summit. Yeah. And and in order to do that, there's a lot of good virtual things that that you can do. But at some point, you have to actually get together if you are serious about finding a tribe.
I think that is so incredibly insightful, because a lot of my community is online through my Facebook group, the Female Short-Term Rental Investors Facebook group. I have my accelerator students and mastermind members and my Achievers Club. And with all of those, I am so incredibly grateful that I get to see them across the screen, the computer screen every week, multiple times a week. But there is nothing like being in the same room and giving someone a hug, right? Tomorrow, as of the time I'm recording this, tomorrow I'm flying to Cabo, and the Achievers Club is going to Cabo for 3 days, And so again, like, I think there are so many wonderful benefits about having an online community. But when you're able to come together and sit next to each other, and sometimes it's holding each other's hand or holding up a glass of wine, there's just something so incredibly powerful about that. And it, it makes me excited about the future too, right? About continuing to meet people and grow my own community. It sounds like you're very similar.
Yes, yes. I think, oh, I've got enough friends, but then I meet more, and I'm one of those. I go because I'm actually an introvert, and so I'll go to some place and I'll see, there'll be new members, new people, and I'll be like, oh, I like the old people. I don't want to talk to you new people, and then I just get to talk to them, and then I've got more lifelong friends. So
yeah. I think that you can never have enough friends, just like you can never have enough education. Like you can always be growing and improving yourself and always be expanding your friend group. I love that. Okay, I want to go back to the topic of your self-directed IRA, and I want to dive into this a little bit with you. For anyone who is listening, who is like, well, wait a minute, what do we even mean by a self-directed IRA? How would you explain that to them?
So there's numerous ways you can set it up. I set mine up by transferring money from my IRA, but it's essentially an IRA that you can use the money in different ways than a traditional IRA. Normally, you have a custodian who will only let you do these certain stock funds or something like that. So here you still have to have a custodian. It's still very regulated because it is an IRS entity type of thing. And but your custodian, you can make the decisions. You can invest in crypto, real estate. You can't invest. Gold is tricky. There's some things that are really tricky, but most things you can invest in that are legal. And so the theory is, if you know real estate and you're good at real estate, why would you want to invest your life savings in stocks, which, you're just doing a crapshoot if you're, buying mutual funds, where if you really know real estate, some of the podcasts I listen to, like people are buying cows with their self-directed IRA. Yeah, seriously.
Cows, like COWS?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I don't really know cows, so I'm not going to buy a cow anytime soon.
But I thought at this point I had already done lots of short-term rentals. And so keep in mind also that the rules so there's a lot of rules about it because it is an IRA. And so you can't add money to it. I can't stay in any of my properties. I can't work on any of my properties. And the working on any of your properties is a really, really, really gray area. If you talk to someone like Ryan Bankey, who I love, he says, you can buy them, but you can't self-manage them. Where I think it's Mark Kohler from KKOS says it's more of a gray area about you might be able to do a little bit of managing if you're. So anyway, it's really, 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 if you do something like that and you want to do short-term rentals, you're safest by hiring a manager. But I have had so I bought 2 houses. One is a long-term house in Panama City, not Panama City Beach, and it does great. It's gets good rent, and it's gone up in value. The other is a very interesting house in Panama City Beach. It's on multifamily. It's right in the center of the beach, right in what's called Bidawee, which is a private beach access area of about a quarter of a mile. There's none other like that in Panama City Beach. And it's a block from the beach. It's got 2 houses on it. The interesting thing is that I've learned a lot from this is the back house basically should be torn down. It's not going to last that much longer. And because there's lots of different rules. You can have a loan in your self-directed IRA. So both my houses have mortgages on them, but they have to be non-recourse mortgages. It gets pretty complicated, but they're non-recourse mortgages, which means, and then I can't add money to it. So trying to figure out how I can tear down that back house and build a duplex, because that's what should it would make it a wonderful, wonderful property and do amazingly well. And it'd probably be worth $1.5 million. But I just can't figure out how to do it because I can't add any money to it. Even if I had the money, if I had and I can't just get a normal loan, can only get a non-recourse loan. So if you are thinking at all about that, there's a lot. I would recommend you buy a property that's good to go, unless you have a lot of extra cash in your self-directed IRA. And if anybody wants to buy that property, I'm probably just going to have to sell it, because the other option is to take it out of my IRA, but that's I'll get taxed on it as operating.
I was just that's a taxable event. Yeah,
all in 1 year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm really stuck on that property because I didn't think about all of that ahead of time. So
yeah. Yeah. So for anyone listening, again, there are some tremendous benefits, very specifically tax benefits by buying real estate in your self-directed IRA, because you can grow your self-directed IRA through the wealth you're building through real estate. You can grow that money tax-free.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, you also have to be very careful that you're following the rules and regulations, because there are plenty of them in place, right? Sheila, how did you learn all this stuff? Was it just through your custodian? Talk to me about what resources you found to be most helpful.
So I listened to it. I learned about it through podcasts, through Mark Kohler, and he has a partner. Can't remember his name. They actually wrote a book as well. So I bought the book. And then their company is my custodian, and I actually talked with their attorneys. Their attorneys set up, I have an LLC that is owned, my IRA owns the LLC, so that I can actually write checks if I need to, or I could purchase a house through my LLC, and that way, otherwise the custodian has to actually cut checks. So there's a lot, but that's pretty much how I learned. But I know that there's a lot of other major custodians that are very helpful and have a lot of information out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I would say find a custodian. There are lots of real estate investment networks as well that bring in these custodians to do, webinars and guest speaking to educate their members. So, obviously, and Sheila, I'm going to volunteer yet, maybe if someone has a question, they could reach out to you.
Sure.
I think that would be wonderful. And then also, just wanted to share, Maria Reith and I have a program called the Buy Direct Academy. It's closed right now, but we will reopen those doors in the future, and we teach people exactly how to do this, how to buy real estate creatively, maybe out of the box, where you don't have to go through traditional banks. So that's awesome. I'm curious, over the last 9 years, as you have grown your portfolio, what are maybe some of the biggest surprises you've learned along the way?
So I've learned one huge surprise to me is that, dealing with the guests, that's going to be my biggest issue, my biggest time stealer. No, especially now that I'm automated, I use Hospitable, I use OwnerRez, I use Touch Stay Guides, I use Price Labs. I'm pretty well process, got that down, and talking to guests is I almost talk to guests too little, because everything is so automated. It's tempting sometimes to not, to just let that go and not reach out for and actually have a real interaction. And so I really try to do that, but it really doesn't take much time at all.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that has shocked me, and especially with having probably 9 houses, is just the amount of paperwork, the licensing, the LLCs, the bill paying, the insurance. Oh, especially with Florida. Oh, the insurance. I don't even.
Sure.
Makes me want to cry. And I was telling my husband once, I'm like going through the mail and I'm like, yep, insurance. I said, the good news is only one of them is a cancellation this time because I was just so used to getting cancellations from the Florida stuff.
Yeah.
And just the bookkeeping. And I'm a CPA. The bookkeeping with that many. And I do some co-hosting. So I had and that's it's realistically, it's overwhelming the amount of just miscellaneous paperwork, admin stuff. I love being out in the condos. I supply all mine. I have we have storage units here and in Washington where we live. And I love going to Sam's and picking up all the stuff and dropping it off so that my housekeeper can grab it from the supply place and going into the condos and saying, oh, it needs this. I love that. I love talking to guests. I do not like all this other stuff. And I have not found an effective way. I've thought about VAs. I've thought about this to really streamline that.
Yeah. I mean, I will share with you, I've taken an approach that isn't maybe customary for most people. But when I started my short-term rental journey, I was working full-time in a very busy corporate job. And so from the get-go, I built a team around me where I could delegate work, from boots on the ground to, talking with guests to bookkeeping. So virtually every aspect of my business is led by other people, and I lead the team of people, which has tremendous benefits because I do have the ability to lead, a sizable portfolio in a relatively small amount of time, less than 10 hours every week. Now, that being said, I have a fair amount of overhead, right? I have a fair amount of overhead. But at the same time, I'll gladly pay that overhead because my team makes my life so much easier. And I know that that's a trade-off. Some people may not have the same desires or goals or risk tolerances, but I will share for anyone listening, if you are thinking like Sheila, like, oh gosh, I really don't like some of this stuff. My recommendation is find the stuff that you don't like to do and hire great people to do it because they'll be lit up by that work if it's within their zone of genius, and it frees you up to do what you love too. More Sam's Club runs, it sounds like.
Yes. And it's probably because I'm over 60, but for me, I think I do want to probably end up hiring a bookkeeper, which will help a lot, different things like that. But I'm going to narrow down my portfolio to just it'll still probably be 6 or 7. But my favorites, the ones that are easy and that will free up a lot of the LLC, the insurance work, all that kind of stuff work. And then the theory is to just, we can sell them all and buy one huge house. But I don't like that. That makes me nervous. And
you've got all your risk. You've got all your risk in one basket right there.
Yeah. So, but
I'm excited to see what you do next. Talk to me about how your goals have changed over the years. I know when you started out, you kind of decided to do a short-term rental because of advice that came from someone else. Now that you've been in the industry for 9 years and have grown your portfolio and expanded your business, how has that impacted your goals?
So part of it is what I just mentioned, where I think I want to have fewer the pumpkin plan. Thank you. We're kind of culling they're not bad, but culling the ones that don't do well. We own one in Montana and I own one in Puerto Rico, and one thing I'm doing is narrowing it to only 2 locations. Having so much spread out was just managing different teams in different areas was a little too much. So we're sold in Puerto Rico, which made me cry.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of, you and I were talking about being in warm places.
Yeah.
And I love Puerto Rico because even if it was cold in Panama City Beach, I could go to. It was nice in Puerto Rico.
Yeah. I was just in Puerto Rico again at the time we're recording this about a month ago. And that was my first time there. I had spent a week in St. Croix. And then we flew to Puerto Rico and took a cruise for a week. So we had a 2-week Caribbean vacation. I highly recommend it. But what I didn't realize was how close Puerto Rico was to St. Croix. And I actually met one of my team members there for lunch because she lives in Puerto Rico. So we went to lunch and I was asking her, I was like, do you ever go to St. Croix? And she was like, no. Well, and I asked her, well, why not? Like, it is beautiful there. And she's like, oh, it's just another Caribbean island. I mean, you've seen one, you've seen them all. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so funny, the different perspectives when you're used to living in the Caribbean.
Right. Yeah. Ours was on the west side of the island, and I grew to love the west side of the island with such a passion. And I learned, I loved it. So goals, back to goals. So just to have properties in Panama City Beach and Washington State, actively right now selling the Montana property. And I think some other goals that have changed is at one point I thought I wanted to be this great big co-host and co-host a lot of other properties. And I still co-host a few, and I'm still interested in co-hosting, but I just want to co-host a couple, cherry-picked properties kind of, because it's nice because you're doing, a lot of the work without having to do the insurance and all that stuff. The owner does all that stuff. But it's still a lot of work, and it's really hard. I've learned that it's really hard sometimes to deal with owners. You have to really, really, really cherry pick your owners because, the ones I've worked with have all been great. But I've heard some horror stories with some others, and even the great owners. I'm used to making decisions for me that impact myself and my finances. It's really, really stressful, more stressful for me to make decisions impacting someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that raises a really great point that, so many folks who get into short-term rentals want to grow their portfolio. And oftentimes co-hosting is a really, really amazing opportunity for them to grow that portfolio. And when folks go into co-hosting, taking on any property that comes their way, or candidly, any owner that reaches out, I think oftentimes they find themselves in a situation where they regret that decision, because you absolutely have to have in my opinion, you have to have quality standards around your properties, the types of properties that you take on. And you also need to vet your owners as much as they're vetting you, right? You want to make sure it's a win-win situation on both sides of the coin. Otherwise, chances are you're going to find yourself wanting to pull your hair out, because of not having good clients. So, I'm curious, what has been your favorite thing about having short-term rentals or being in the short-term rental industry?
Well, I would say there are 2 things, and they're separate. One is just being able to do this from anywhere. I go to Europe. The last few years, I've gone for 3 weeks at a time, and I set up everything before I go for emergencies. If there's an emergency, I get with my cleaners, my people on the ground. But I still deal with guests and things like that. But I know that with the time difference, it could be an issue. So then I can go and I can do it from wherever. That is amazing and fabulous. But the second thing is I secretly want to be Kim Fitzpatrick. I think you know Kim Fitzpatrick.
Kim Fitzpatrick. Yes. That is
I love, so my son, when he was doing this property that I'm in, I came to help him. He's renting it as a short-term rental, which I'm managing while he's trying to sell it. And I walk in and, it's been construction. Like I said, he took it down to the studs and everything is everywhere. And he's like, Mom, I'm so overwhelmed. He said, the construction's finished. He said, but it just makes me crazy. And I walked in, I said, oh, I love this. I said, in a week and a half, it will be ready. I said, and you'll see. And he's like, I don't believe it. I don't see how you can do it. I said, yes, no, that's what I love. I love, the shopping and the organizing and the getting it ready. That's like,
and the hanging wallpaper.
The wallpaper, the decor, picking out the decor. My husband and I, speaking of teamwork, we'll sit there. It's so funny. Like we're under contract for a new place, and we both love the decor, and we'll text each other back and forth because he's back in Washington now. We need to do this on the wall, and we really, we start with a theme. Every property has a theme. Then we go to colors. What are the colors for this property? What's the style? And then we really get to work. And I love all that.
That's awesome. So I adore Kim as well. And, she's a very valued member of my accelerator program. She's actually speaking at the short-term rental virtual summit for women. But I tell her every time she gets on a Monday night call, I'm like, I feel like we need to play this game. That's where in the world is Kim Fitzpatrick? Because girlfriend is always on the road, and I love watching her videos. It's so entertaining. So, Kim, we love you, girl.
Yes, we do.
All right, Sheila, I want to move to the lightning round. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'm going to ask you to answer with the very first thing that comes to mind. Okay. First question: where is your favorite place to vacation?
Europe.
And what part of Europe?
What's Europe? I'm a Mediterranean. I'm a warm girl. So I like Spain, Italy, Portugal.
I've heard. Okay. So if you had to pick one place, Spain, Portugal, Italy, or Greece, what would you pick?
So I love Sardinia in Italy. It's got the Italian food, which I like better than the Spanish food. And, but yet the island is gorgeous. It is gorgeous. And there's so much to do there. I think, who's on, he's on Mike's, Mike's partner. Yep. Yes. Is from there. And so anyway, it's beautiful. That would be my one place.
Okay. Now, what's one place you've never been that you want to visit?
Probably Tahiti and the South Pacific. We actually had flights booked to Tahiti for last November, 50,000 miles round trip. I'm this big points person. We go to Europe and we fly first class for 50,000 points. I do it, all that stuff. And we just couldn't go. I called like crying, canceling it. And the lady's like, where? From Alaska Airlines. She's like, why are you canceling? I said, I don't know.
Oh my goodness. All right. What's one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you were starting out in short-term rentals?
I wish, so when I first started, I really didn't have to do a lot of financial analysis of properties. I went by my gut. I lived in Panama City Beach for 23 years. I knew it was my market. And pretty much in 2016, 2017, 2018, it might have seemed expensive, but I did great. And so I wish I'd learned early on, because then I bought some not so good ones during COVID, because I was used to this and I was used to not doing the analysis. So I wish I wish I'd learned to do really good analysis right from the beginning. And I'm
Yeah.
an accountant. I should know that.
Hey, in my book, there's no shoulda, there's no coulda, there's no woulda. We all learn as we go, right? We all look at past mistakes and think, all right, there's an opportunity for me to learn and fail forward, right? I think failures are when you don't learn, right? So
Agree.
don't beat yourself up, girlfriend. All right, next question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
This is from my husband, and it came actually from his dad. And because I mentioned before, I'm not assertive, I'm not aggressive, I don't like doing hard stuff, I don't like firing people. So his advice, and it always rings in my mind when I have something hard to do, is if you have to swallow a frog, swallow it quickly. So just get it done.
That is great advice.
Yep.
Good advice.
Because a lot of times the dread is even worse than actually doing it. So if you just do it, you cut out through all that dread.
Amen. And not to like push my faith on anybody, but a lot of times if I'm swallowing a frog, I'm praying before I put it in my mouth. You know what I mean? Because it helps. It helps me. It helps me.
I agree.
All right. Last question. What's one thing and or person that you're grateful for today?
I am grateful for my friend Brenda, and she used to be, we worked together at the Navy base when I worked at the Navy base in Panama City Beach. We were golfing friends, single girlfriends together, and then I moved away. She became my first cleaner. She is also, so I like to be Kim Fitzpatrick, but I'm not, I can do wallpaper, but I'm not tools like a drill, like I called my husband one day. I said, guess what, honey? I said, I actually used a drill today. But she is like Kim. She can do anything with tools. So she is my help, Brenda. The ceiling's falling. Please go look at it for me. But we have remained the best of friends. And she's my emergency help for anything and everything related to short-term rentals. And she's my margarita girl too. And
a margarita girl. I like her already. Sheila, it's been so awesome having you. Thank you so much for being with us. If someone is interested in learning more about you, what is the best place for them to find you online?
So I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Escapes by Sheila. I have a website, escapesbysheila.com. So those are probably the best ways.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you again for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been a blast.
All right, my friends. Now, before you go, I want to send you a special invite to join me and so many other amazing women inside the all new and improved STR Sisterhood community. It's where women in the short-term rental industry come together to connect, learn, and grow. You can jump in for free, or if you're ready to dive deeper into expert-led training on a regular basis, 2 times a week, you can upgrade your account for just $12 a month. Either way, it's no pressure. You just have options. Head on over to the strsisterhood.m as in Mary, N as in Nancy.co and get plugged in.